For this pre-flight video, we're going to be using C0, which is the first conforming prototype. We're going to go ahead and start on the exterior portion of pre-flight, and that's going to begin at the engine intake. So we'll hop up on the wing here, get up on the wing walk area, and we'd remove the plug that would be kept normally in the front of the engine here, in the engine intake area. And we're going to look at the D-ring to make sure there's no damage to that. And then we're going to look down inside, and we're going to look at the engine probes to make sure there's no damage to the engine probes, and also into any of the fan blades. And so it looks fine in there right now. One precaution would be in winter operations, if any moisture were to get in there and thaw and then refreeze, it could freeze that fan blade in position, which would be a really bad thing. So we want to make sure under those conditions that you're checking for freedom of motion of that fan blade. Okay, everything looks good there. So one of the first things we want to look at here then is the left main landing gear. So we're looking at attaching hardware. We're looking at the brake lines for any cracks, any leakage that we might see, and also on the oleo strut to see if there's any leakage in that area. I'm looking at the inflation of the tire and also the tread on the tire. Tread that's worn completely down. And I'll check the door for security. You can check the stall strip and check the upper and lower surfaces of the boots. We're looking for cracks, tears, any kind of deformations. So that all looks good. Stop out and check the fuel quantity, and we have that convenient tape that you can read in 10-gallon increments to see exactly how much fuel you have. So that looks great today. Make sure that's secure. And we're going to take a look down here at the pitot tube, make sure we have the opening that we're looking for here. Make sure that's secure. Come around to the wingtip, checking security, checking the lights that we can see inside of here. And then we have the aileron. So we have the trim tab on this side, and it's just going to stay in position. I'm looking at a balance weight inside of the aileron area here. That looks secure. And I'll look at attaching hardware on anything that I can find on aircraft. Anytime I can see attaching hardware, we'll take a look at that. Flap for security, that looks good. For surface looks good. And I always check the baggage compartment because I want to make sure that everything that I have in here has been secured adequately, and of course we're not overloading things. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this area and we're going to check the static ports. There's two on each side of the aircraft. Just make sure that they're free of obstructions. Up here, I'm going to be looking at security of the antennas on top of the engine nacelle. Looks good there. And also, there's numerous air intakes here for cooling of various components inside the engine compartment. So those are your intakes, and then there's an exhaust for that for those components as well. So I'm just going to make sure that those are free of any kind of obstruction. So we've checked all that. I come down and take a look at all the antennas on the bottom side of the aircraft that I can see. They look good. They look secure. The attachment of the ventral fin, make sure that that's secure. And the yaw-SAS control surfaces for freedom of movement, and any attachment area that you can see, any of the hardware we can see back there, we'll check that. Now the V-tail, on the leading edge, we have boots as well, so we want to make sure that we're looking at those surfaces for any kind of tears or cracks, any kind of deformations. And then we're going to come back here to the rudder vator surfaces. And again, I can see attaching hardware, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that, make sure that I have freedom of movement. We have the trim tab here, and then I'll look at the top of that same surface, both sides. So check the yaw-SAS control surface on the right side, checking again for hardware, freedom of motion, and the ventral fin for security, and also the V-tail with the leading edge boot, make sure that there's no cracks, again, no tears in that. And here we have the exhaust for the heat exchangers that are associated with the ice protection system and also the environmental control system, the ECS. And here we just have some intakes, and we have exhaust areas for various cooling of engine components. Okay, and up here we have the engine oil sight indicator. One of the best ways to see that is just shine a flashlight in there and make sure that oil is at that bolt line that's below the full level, and we're fine on oil. Okay, so again, I'm going to check any antennas I can on from this side of the engine nacelle area. Looking underneath again for any antennas. And then we're going to look for the TKS fluid filler. Make sure that's secure, because that's really all you can do at this point. You'll check fluid levels when you're on your interior pre-flight. Okay, check our flap for security again. That's good. Come over here. So we want to check the aileron for freedom of movement. And we're going to be looking at any attaching hardware that we can see. And here we have the balance tab. So you're looking at that. It moves in the opposite direction from the aileron, hence balancing the control forces. We have static wicks, make sure those are attached. So we'll check the lens cover, see if there's any cracks, make sure it's secure. Check the pitot tube for the opening and security. And we'll be looking at the boot, the upper and lower surface again. We're going to look for cracks, any kind of tears or deformations. And check our right tank. The fuel level on the right-hand tank. Again, looking at the tape that's in there, and we have the proper fuel level. Now we have another chance to look at the landing gear. So I'm checking the door security. Just looking at general hardware attachments, making sure everything looks proper. Looking for any kind of cracks in the hydraulic line or any seepage of the fluid. We'll also look at the oleo strut to make sure that there's no fluids dripping from that. I'll look at the condition of the tire, the inflation looks good, and the tread looks good. I don't see any flat spots at all. Check the vortex generator, and that all looks good. Here we have the egress window to make sure that that's latched properly. We'll check for freedom of motion on the angle attack vane, and use caution when you're touching it because it could be hot. Now we'll check the nose area here. We have the air conditioning inlet door. We have the caps cover, secure. We have the landing gear doors for attachment. And I'm looking just generally inside for hardware or any kind of leakage. And also the tire inflation. So I'll check the radome, make sure that's secure, there's no damage to that. And come around to the left front side. And that completes our pre-flight. So everything looks good. One last item we want to do here is go grab our tug, hook up, and get ready to fly.